Hey everyone, welcome to this 30-minute nostalgia trip through the history of Forza Horizon. We're gonna play through every game, watch some of the trailers, talk some history, reminisce about the good old days, and discuss my personal past with each game. So let's jump right in. The year is 2012 and E3 is just around the corner. Rumors are buzzing about a Forza spin-off developed by a new studio with talent from big racing names like Codemasters, Bizarre, and Criterion. Turn 10 would no longer be at the helm, and instead, Playground Games was giving the Forza franchise a shot. This made a lot of fans nervous. Dan Greenewalt himself, head of Turn 10, said it was a risk. So on June 4th, at Microsoft's press conference, we got our first look at Forza Horizon, an open-world street racing game with a music festival vibe, and Forza Motorsport's cars and handling. This was a crazy concept. Forza Motorsport and Gran Turismo were of course the flagship sim racers for their respective consoles, and other track racing games existed, shout out to PGR, but open world belonged to the arcade racers like Need for Speed, and the still pretty new and pretty successful Test Drive Unlimited 2. The thought of an open world racing game with cars customization and physics grounded in reality was exciting. On October 23, 2012, the first Forza Horizon was released with a hugely positive reaction from fans and reviewers alike. Let's go ahead and jump into the game and this intro, it's immediately obvious that Horizon was made with a strong direction. Playground Games had a vision for what they wanted to do with the Forza franchise, and they did not half-ass it. You're hit right away with the familiar Horizon vibes, and I love that the powerful EDM and panning car scenery intro sequence has been here since the beginning. This game has such a confident style, obviously borrowing from events like Grid Life, Coachella, or Race Wars, and taking some aspects from other big racing games of the time. It's weird seeing the brand placement in this game all over as well. I know back at release Playground caught some flack for that, but it did help connect the game to the real world and definitely lended to its style. It's funny, when I booted up Horizon 1 last week to start playing it again, I noticed right away how similar a lot of UI elements and just general feel was to Dirt 3. I mean, even some of the soundtrack crosses over. And the point system definitely feels like an evolution of PGR's Kudos. The dev's past definitely shows here. But there's a lot that's familiar to the modern Horizon player here too. It's cool how much of what we know as Horizon today has always been here. The radio stations, barn finds, rivals events, speed zones, showcase events. For 2012, Horizon had so much that most other racing games didn't even think of. And it's important to remember as well that before this game, Forza hadn't done off-road yet, and it worked beautifully here. Rally was a blast and an obvious fit for Colorado. The handling advertised itself as being pulled right from Motorsport 4, but was definitely more on the arcade side with some hidden aids and assists. Still, it had its roots in sim, and honestly, if I were to drive a game today with handling exactly like this, I'd be very satisfied with it. It still feels very Forza. I was able to jump right back in and drove well enough after not playing for over 6 years. The big sin here though was that Horizon 1 didn't have tuning. The upgrades and visual customization and livery editor all made it over from Motorsport, but any form of tuning was nixed. And I understand why they did that. I don't think it was a bad decision. It fit the whole more approachable direction very well, but in the end, motorsport enthusiasts and gearheads alike were upset to see it cut. It also ultimately meant that more niche racing game disciplines like drag and drift weren't able to flourish. That's not to say that players didn't find a way. Drifting was actually still pretty fun, and finding the better drift cars and building them just through mods had a neat feel to it. Although it's pretty well known that Forza Motorsport isn't the most strictly sim game and Horizon is a more watered down version of that, this was, I believe, the first open-world racing game where drifting actually felt believable, and the concept of playing in the open world with friends and finding and hitting cool drift spots around the map, it's not something that had been explored much in racing games before. Now, I do wish the online experience was a bit smoother though, and the fact that traffic disappeared when you went online was a bummer. But for the time, it was at the least passable. Now let's talk about the map, which takes place in Colorado. Honestly, Even today, I really like it. In many other open-world racing games, the map feels empty of content and is used mostly as a way to get from race to race. Horizon used it as a main feature. The PR stunts, head-to-head races, and big event variety meant that the open world experience was just as important as the actual racing, and I think that's one of the series' biggest successes. In Colorado, the festival is in a central location with outposts spread throughout the map, and although it was less convenient, having the paint shop, auto show, and garage all in different buildings throughout the festival site had a cool vibe, and I'd like to see that return in some aspect in a future game. Colorado is obviously the smallest map of the series, but it still feels like it covers a good area. There's tons of variety in the landscape, it looks pretty good for its age, there's tons of curvy roads, the day-night cycle is gorgeous to watch, and really my only complaint is that it feels a bit flat and linear. Even in the mountain range, there's just not a great sense of elevation or scale. But catching glimpses of fireworks shooting up from the festival site in the plains while you're driving through the Rockies, that feeling is just as great as it's always been. It's almost a bummer that Colorado was the first location for the Horizon Festival. As someone that lives pretty close and has driven through the Rockies dozens of times, it would have been nice to see the location done with today's graphics. That's not to say it didn't look good for the time though. For 2012, on the Xbox 360, Colorado looked lifelike, especially when you messed around in photo mode. To emphasize this point, I'm going to leave you with some of my favorite few sentences in review history from IGN. It's a world brimming with detail everywhere you look, from the leafy green country lanes to the ribbons of asphalt lining the dusty red canyons. It's devastatingly gorgeous. It's like Emma Stone playing bass guitar in her underpants. Yeah. It is seriously impressive though how Horizon 1 managed to have a beautiful open world, over 200 cars all with full interiors and customization, a day-night cycle and sim-ish physics, on an Xbox 360. You would be crazy for not being amazed by Forza Horizon. Or you would be me. Yep, when Horizon 1 came out, I hated it. Now I grew up playing Forza Motorsport and was a big fan of the franchise. Around 2012 though, I was playing a lot of Dirt 3 and Test Drive Unlimited too. This Horizon game to me felt like Forza losing its touch and trying too hard to fit in or be more like Need for Speed, and I didn't buy the game. I had TDU 2, which in my young opinion was the much better game at the time. Granted, it did have a bigger map, more lifestyle features that Horizon didn't get until much later, and was available on PC, my preferred platform. It wasn't until 2 months after Horizon's launch, when I was with my wife's family over Christmas, that I got my first actual taste of Forza Horizon. My brother-in-law booted me up into the Mustang vs. Mustang showcase. Yes, this one brings back memories, my first ever experience of Horizon. Although I was stubborn at the time and complained that it had watered down physics and wasn't about the racing anymore with these Top Gear style events, a fire had been lit. A fire though that wasn't realized until much later. I went back to my Dirt 3 and Test Drive Unlimited, all the while wondering what I might have been missing out on with Horizon. But it wasn't until Forza Horizon 2 that I actually realized what I was really missing out on. Forza Horizon 2 was released in early October of 2014, and was again highly praised. It was in many ways the perfect evolution of the first game. The world was almost 3 times as big, tuning had made its return, a dynamic weather system was added as well as smart AI called Drivatars. The game took place in Europe, spanning parts of France and Italy, and instead of further separating itself from the motorsport series, it had grown closer to its track racing counterpart. This was a very good move. Horizon wasn't trying to copy some other style anymore. It had to find its own, and the style set here has largely remained the same over the next 2 games. In large part, the updated style was due to the Xbox One launch, meaning Playground Games was able to really flex their potential, no longer limited by aging hardware. In my experience this past week, going from Horizon 1 to 2 so quickly and experiencing that huge jump in map size, graphics, style, and features, I'm left wondering what Horizon 5 might look like. We know that the next console generation is coming this year, and Forza Motorsport 8 is in development, with Horizon 5 likely coming soon after. If we get to jump anything like what we saw between Horizon 1 and 2, we are all in for a real treat. But let's get back to the game at hand. In Horizon 2, we see the introduction of many more features we know as staples to the franchise today. The boxy Windows-style UI, wheel spins, cross-country racing through destructible environment, and of course the best radio station, Hospital Records. Bucket lists were added here too, an improvement to the 1000 Club from Horizon 1, and now transformed into Horizon Stories, but they added a cool new way to experience the map in a car you may not have otherwise driven. Let's talk about the map. Horizon 2's version of Southern Europe was, and still is, stunning. In many ways, this is my favorite map of the series. It's such a great location, has so many defining and memorable areas, and most of the roads are incredible. Where Horizon 1 felt a bit like a bunch of arcade Ridge Racer courses seamlessly stitched together, Horizon 2 feels way more organic and has more defining landmarks. The airstrip, the freight yard, and the cities all had their own distinct feel. The world felt so vast and alive, a huge step forward from the admittedly quite lonely feeling Colorado. You could spend hours playing, watching the in-game days pass by and the rain come and go, and it just felt so cozy. Driving along the coast at night, Castelletto in the distance, it's a fond memory, and driving it again feels just as sweet as it used to. And who remembers going to show off at car meets? I know they existed in Horizon 3 too, but it's a shame they're gone now. I would spend hours in meets, drag racing other players, and just seeing what rolled in. Those lended to that living world vibe, which was also helped by the much improved overall online experience. You can now seamlessly cruise the open world with other players, race online, and now that tuning was back, drifters started pouring in and forming communities. The drifting scene hit Horizon 2 hard, helped by the fact that the car handling felt better than ever. Although there's some nuance missing and of course changes have been made over the past 6 years, this is proper Horizon handling, pretty much just as you'd recognize it. And funny enough, it was here that I got an answer to a question I've been wondering for ages. Does Forza Horizon calculate sprung versus unsprung weight? Well, yes, your first trip to the garage tells you that.
Yeah, tires are the most important upgrade for any car. And rims? Not only can they reduce unsprung weight, improving suspension response, but they can also make your ride easier on the eye.
Now, as far as content goes, Horizon 2 does of course offer a bigger map and many more race events, but the car list stayed roughly the same, around 200. Definitely a healthy number, but it's wild to think we have 3 times that today. Still though, Horizon 2 has stood the test of time very well, and although I'd love to see a remaster in the updated engine, if you're a newer player that hasn't experienced this game, I highly recommend it if you're looking for more Horizon in a new environment. You'll find yourself right at home. Quick note on that though, sadly, you can't buy Horizon 2 new anymore. I ended up having to pick up this copy used at GameStop last week. Both Horizon 1 and 2 have been officially removed from sale, probably due to licensing issues, but hey, all the more reason for a remaster, right? Anyway, interestingly enough, Horizon 2 is what drew me to Horizon 1. You'll remember that I said earlier I didn't buy the first Horizon, but when 2 was released, my friends were buzzing about it, and when I played it at a buddy's house, something just clicked. Immediately, the handling felt right. The world, I mean, I know I've already talked about it, but back then the world, it was so pretty. I built some cars, drifted around with some friends, and sat in awe that everything from motorsport was really here and just as deep in many ways. I had to get my hands on Horizon, but I only had an Xbox 360. Although Horizon 2 did release for the 360, it was a heavily limited experience, enough almost to be considered a different game altogether, and so I held out, hoping I'd eventually get an Xbox One or maybe the game would come to PC. And in the meantime, the same brother-in-law who had given me my first intro to Horizon with that Mustang versus Mustang battle had given me his copy of Horizon 1. I played it long enough to complete the majority of the game and I enjoyed it, but I knew a better game was out there and I kept going back over and over to play Horizon 2 at my friend's house. Funny enough, until last week, I never actually owned Forza Horizon 2. It would be another few years until I finally got a new Horizon game. At E3 once more, this time in 2016, the stage went dark for a world premiere. The text,
Xbox One and Windows 10 exclusive.
appeared on the screen, and what followed was the most hype-inducing trailer for a racing game I had ever seen.
What a wicked game to play, to make me feel this way. What a wicked thing to do, to let me dream on you. What a wicked thing to say. You never felt this way. What a wicked thing to do, to make me dream of you. No, with you.
That trailer is just so good. I never got that Xbox One, and playing Horizon 2 only at my friend's house, it never quite scratched that itch. But finally, Horizon was coming to PC, and I knew right away this would be my game. I bought a new graphics card in preparation and watched like a hawk for new info to drop over the following months. Horizon 3 launched in late September of 2016, and again, was universally praised, getting the highest Metacritic score yet at 91. The game world was expanded to roughly twice the size of Horizon 2. Drift zones and danger signs were added, along with team management, an auction house, custom blueprints, and a choosable avatar, and they split up the festival into 5 separate venues spread around the map. You'd unlock new festival sites as you progressed through the game, which encouraged you to get a lot more familiar with different parts of the map. I loved this idea, and although the concept of having a central festival is, at the end of the day, better in my opinion, I still today feel this central hub has never been done quite to its full potential. Horizon 3 expanded as much in content as it did in features from Horizon 2, now with roughly 400 cars to choose from, fleshing out the selection from a ton of the manufacturers that had been a bit slim on choice in previous games. And the blueprint feature meant that races had a ton of replayability. I absolutely adored the location of Australia from a technical standpoint. The landscape variety was there, it was bigger and more beautiful than Horizon 2, and the night skies, those are still impossible to beat. But understandably so, elevation felt a bit lacking, and overall the roads just didn't quite feel as inspired as they were in previous games. Horizon 1's Colorado roads were largely inspired by real roads, which gave it a great foundation. Southern Europe in H2 had such great elevation and landscape design with the placing of landmarks and cities that it felt like the roads just placed themselves. They felt organic and exciting. Horizon 3 though, it felt a bit like the landscape was stretched too wide and the roads were just connecting locations or filling in barren spaces in the map. And granted, that's kinda how roads actually are, and Australia is known more for its deserts and grasslands than it is for its mountains. That said though, the balance between forest, coast, and plains felt authentic, and Horizon 3 excelled in so many other areas that it took me a good while to even notice the roads weren't so great. Returning back to that feeling of life in the map, it's never been better than it was here. 5 festival sites meant you could always see a party happening in the distance. Surfer's Paradise stood high in the distance as you drove along the highway. The world was filled with animals, and the skybox was taken from the real Australian night sky. There was a lot of care here. So, when Horizon launched early to Ultimate Edition owners on September 23rd, I took off some time from work and dove in deep. Finally, I was able to play a new Horizon on my own terms, and it swept me away. Within the first few days, I had finished the main campaign and set my eyes on drift zones. Although I grew up playing motorsport, I was too cool in 2016 for that track racing nonsense. Drifting was in. I joined the subreddit, joined up with a local crew, and started participating in a lot of the social sides of Forza that I had never really had the chance to in the past. A lot of new players were flooding into the franchise, and many of them struggled with drifting, so I set out to make a quick video in hopes that I could show them some of the tips I've learned. I made the video in a night, uploaded it to my personal YouTube account, and when I woke up the next morning, I was Hoki Hoshi, the Forza YouTuber. From that moment on, and I know it sounds cliche, everything changed. I started playing Horizon 3 religiously, every night for hours, trying to absorb and gain as much skill as I possibly could. I ended up publishing 3 more videos, my last being a rally guide taking place on Blizzard Mountain, an awesome DLC by the way, but after that, Hoki Hoshi went dark. Hard binging the game and focusing on making videos burnt me out, so I stopped and instead dove back into some RPGs for a while. But soon enough, the itch came back. Horizon had its hold on me. The Hot Wheels DLC launched and a lot of people loved it. I initially swore it off due to it being a bit too arcadey for my tastes, but came around eventually. Those roads are really fun to drive. Although I had played 1 and 2, it's Horizon 3 that I consider my true introduction to the series. So many memories have been formed in that game. Drifting the Surfer's Paradise lot and the double hairpin drift zone, racing my Forza Edition Lambo against unsuspecting players along the highway, grinding the Goliath circuit for hours. Horizon 3 is where I got good. Shot for 100% completion, climbed the PR stunt leaderboards, learned that there was a meta, like using the Holden Tirana as a drift car. I may have played in Colorado first, but when I'm in need of a little shot of nostalgia, I head to Australia. And that leads us into the modern day. Even though I had burnt myself out on Horizon 3, I slowly came back and regularly played in the months coming up to Horizon 4. Once again, the new Horizon was announced at E3 and released in October of that year to record-breaking praise. Forza Horizon 4 takes place in Great Britain, which is another solid map choice. I feel like this location has the least variety of the series, but makes up for it with the seasons, generally good design, and the most detailed world we've ever seen. The views are incredible, Edinburgh feels huge compared to the main cities of past games, and the roads, while not as good as Horizon 2 in my opinion, are a definite step up from Australia. Horizon 4 expands on its predecessor in mostly predictable ways. I think we're now floating around 550 cars total. Seasons have been added, meaning that although 4's map isn't much bigger than Australia, the changing seasons do keep the world feeling fresh every week. The blueprint system has now been updated into a full route creator, which is a perfect addition to the franchise. Lots of lifestyle features are now here, like buying houses and character customization. A lot of quality of life features have been added as well. Traffic is ghosted in speed and drift zones, thank God. You get free delivery of all your cars at any time, and moving through the UI is quick and smooth. But some familiar things went missing in Horizon 4. Due to licensing issues, both Mitsubishi and Toyota were pulled from the base game. Although, as you should all now know, both companies have made a return. Class Rivals was strangely also missing at launch, along with other features like free-for-all online racing. It seemed like Playground was trying to trim the fat and mix things up a bit too much in some ways. We've now had 3 entries to the Horizon series in one console generation, and I think and hope that Horizon is just waiting for that next gen so it can stretch its legs again. It's hard to look back at Horizon 4 from a distance because in many ways we're all still in it. One thing that Horizon 4 has done so much better than any of the previous games is the updates. We're now 17 seasons deep and have seen a lot change with the game over the past year. We've gotten, I think, 5 new Horizon stories, well over 100 new cars with more being added every month, 2 expansions, the Eliminator, and updates to tons of features we already had like photo mode, blueprint races, and the auction house. Playground is in this game for the long haul, and although things have slowed down, they sure haven't stopped, and the devs are still adding more reasons to play every month. On top of that, the built-in online features have maintained a strong community. My first few Forzathon Live events were so fun, and I still think they're one of the best additions to the game. It doesn't happen quite as often as it used to, but getting in those lobbies where all the players line up or park in a nearby lot all in order, car meet style, I love those moments. Back when the game first launched and players were all exploring and learning the map, it was common to see a bunch of drivers huddled around the festival drag strip, lining up to race each other. Those seamless open world moments made Horizon 4's early days so memorable, and all those possibilities are still there. It's just that, well, the Wild West of Horizon 4 is over, and many players have sectioned off into their respective crews and log in with goals in mind, instead of just cruising around the open world looking for new players to adventure with. But the heart of Horizon 4 is still beating, and I'll keep making memories in this game until the next one comes out. So this leaves us at our end. 4 amazing games across 8 years. Back in 2010, before we ever knew about Horizon, 2 passionate developers met and talked about a new genre of racing game. They said they wanted to turn car lovers into gamers and gamers into car lovers. Their idea was to create the kind of event where you can take your car and your friends, have fun, and show off. Part race meet, part auto show, part music show. That was the foundation of the Horizon Festival we know today. And although each game has had its ups and downs, and we all have our criticisms, we're all still here. And at the end of the day, I'd bet you all can't wait to see what Horizon 5 brings. Thank you guys for making it this far into the video. I hope you enjoyed watching this look back as much as I've enjoyed playing it. And if you own any of the older games, I encourage you to boot them up again and relive some of those memories like I have this past week. And I'd love to hear some of your best Forza memories and stories in the comments. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.